Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and Canada has declared a new world order. And specifically what we're dealing with right now is former central banker and now Prime Minister Mark Carney in Canada saying this.
Mine is the first visit of a Canadian Prime Minister to China in nearly a decade. The world has changed much since that last visit.
Gee, you think?
And I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
New world order. The way he says it is so ominous too. And this is something I want to go into today as, of course, it's not exactly what we see reported in the media right now. It's far more of an issue than people realize, and it's been going on for a very long time. In fact, I've been talking about this for a long time. Here's a clip of me back 9 years ago confronting Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the time over the New World Order.
Shame on you and your globalist counterparts. You're scumbag. You're an absolute scumbag.
Now, I'm not new to this. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been talking about this issue. And so we're going to go into this and more today. We're going to hear also some other responses from Mark Carney on what he meant when he was talking about the New World Order and what it means for us going forward. But before we get into it, I urge people to check that link below for Wave Watch 2.2. You can pre-order today. 1,250 frequencies. If you use code WAM, W-A-M, you'll save over $100 on this. No Wi-Fi or Bluetooth required, no EMFs, no apps, and of course, it helps you soothe your nerves, boost your energy, enhance cellular function, and improve sleep. Endorsed by people like Dr. Brian Artis and Dr. Motley. I highly recommend people go and check this out below. Again, that's Wave Watch 2.2, and that is code WAM. W-A-M. Also, check out our link in the description. This is a way to get out of the digital system that they are creating here. This is a big part of this New World Order. firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/. It has to be that exact link. And there you could buy physical gold, silver, platinum, or palladium, hold it in your hands, put it in a vault, or put it in an IRA outside of the traditional IRA system. Schedule an appointment for a free consultation with Mark Gonzalez today, and you'll also get a complimentary investors package. Of course, we do tons of videos with Mark. This is a historic time for this. People are flooding into this for a reason. Let him know in the comments of the forum when you sign up that he found him at World Alternative Media, or WAM, W-A-M. All right, so let's get into what we're dealing with here with this New World Order. We have Mark Carney, who, of course, was the lead central banker, head of the Bank of Canada, and, of course, over in the Bank of England as well. He has been someone that I've been talking about and dissecting for about 15 years now, since I first came across him. And they will say that this is about maybe the IMF kind of world order. They will say that he is in some way creating this New World Order as this same framework that George H.W. Bush talked about years ago. It's not quite the case. But before I dig into all of what all of this means, I want you guys to see a little bit more here of what's going on. Because, again, he says, regarding China, I believe the progress we have made and the partnership sets us up well for the New World Order. Let's look at some examples of leaders talking about this in the past. This is a video I made about 10 years ago now. It was October 8th, 2016 on this very subject. I'm not playing the whole thing, obviously, just the intro that I made.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
Maintaining world domination is based on an intellectually and financially bankrupt idea that generates dependency, war, loss of civil liberties, inflation, and debt, all of which contribute to our economic crisis.
Would you support if we as a whole world just came together under one government?
Yes. Why not?
A new world order type of idea being under, global government. Is that something you'd be in favor of?
Yeah, definitely, with Canada being such a multicultural country.
Yeah, why not just expand it to the new world order, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Hey everybody, Josh.
Yeah, those are the good old days. That was Dan Dix of Press for Truth there, of course. And, one thing that I find interesting about this is the mention by George H.W. Bush about it's not the law of the jungle. Now, I find that interesting because just the day after Mark Carney announced this call for a new world order with China said themselves that they see the world, especially the United States, as a place that is similar to the laws of the jungle. They're using that terminology. And I want to point out that, again, this is slightly different than before. I mean, it was always leading up to this point, but there was a New World Order that moved into militarism, and now we're in the New World Order that's leading into technocracy, which, of course, is, both enslave you, but one leads to the other. And we're ending one world order with militarism to shift us into the so-called safety net, which it's not safe at all, the safety net of the new world order, which is a shift from the West to the East. That's what we're dealing with. It's an overall shift from the West to the East, and I want to further go into what that means. So we have video of Mark Carney responding to reporters on why he was talking about this so-called New World Order. I'm going to pause and talk throughout this this clip here, but I want to play it for you because I think it's interesting. It's going to sound boring, but I'll explain as we go here.
Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg News. Yesterday when you met with Premier Lee, one of the things you said in the public remarks was this partnership, Canada and China, this new partnership sets us up well for the new world order. What did you mean by that? What is the new world order?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, because I think the world is still determining what that order is going to be. And let's be clear what we're talking about first and foremost, which is what are the trading, what is going to govern global trade? What is the role of the WTO going to be? How important are bilateral deals such as the one we're developing, plurilateral deals, if I can use that term?
So a big part of that is trade. So the issue with trade here is that we have a supply chain being set up, the One Belt, One Road initiative in China. We have this shift for trading with U.S. instead of U.S. dollars, the BRICS system, and a BRICS world reserve currency system that's an outlier from the IMF, which was, of course, planned long ago. I'll get into that more after this, but he's kind of talking about that trade sector, which is exactly why we see war with Venezuela, Iran, the push for Greenland right now. This all correlates, and it's very important to understand this, but I'll let this video keep playing here.
Trans-Pacific Partnership, potential linkages between Trans-Pacific Partnership and the EU.
Yeah, there we go, and the EU. So the idea of the European Union and correlation with Canada and, by the way, Greenland.
Where is financial regulation, payment system regulation going to...
Financial regulation, payment system regulation, CBDCs, my friends, a digital framework.
Fit into that. All of these aspects, I mean, use a fancy word, like the architecture, the multilateral system.
Apparently architecture is a fancy word.
That has been developing.
He's talking exactly about the thing I've been warning about for 15, 20 years now regarding that shift into the East, utilizing China as a guinea pig state for technocracy and then just joining them in their system and make it appear as though there's some kind of enemy, some kind of warring faction between Canada and the United States or Mexico and the United States or much of the world that is shifting into the BRICS system. It's all BS, but I'll get into that again further later.
These is being eroded, to use a polite term, undercut, use another term. So the question is, what gets built in that place? How much of a patchwork is it? How much is it just on a bilateral basis? or where do like-minded countries in certain areas? So like-minded countries, just to be clear, doesn't mean you agree on everything.
He's talking about China being a like-minded country, by the way, which is hilarious and exactly what I've been warning about. But he's saying what's going to replace that. Well, they already have the replacement. They already have the whole system built. It's just about the right crisis to collapse one system to move into the next, and the right excuse, the right pretext. Say, hey, Trump is fighting the New World Order, and he's doing all this stuff, which he isn't, because he's actually helping the collapse of the West in favor of the East, even though it appears as though he's defending it. And I get it. I understand why people see it this way. But by doing what he's doing right now, he's actually weakening the legs and promoting that move, that shift out of chaos, order out of chaos, which is always what they've wanted and what the World Economic Forum has been wanting, and exactly what he's doing with AI and digital IDs and mass surveillance right now in the United States with cameras on every highway, being able to do facial recognition and sensing what your license plate is, and being able to utilize this in order to restrict you. So this is... And by the way, the 5-year social media history in order to enter the United States, plus 10 years of email, plus photo metadata, iris scans, biometrics, all this kind of stuff relates exactly to what the World Economic Forum wanted and exactly what that new world order is. I don't want to get too carried away right from the start here, so I'll continue here.
Aspects, for example, on digital trade or agricultural trade. Climate finance as another area, to move into areas of geostrategy, geosecurity.
Okay, so there's the militarism standpoint, but that also involves AI, which they're developing right now with Saudi Arabia, and I'll get into that more later as well, because there's new news regarding Canada and Saudi Arabia and Qatar and other countries here, which, of course, Saudi Arabia left the petrodollar recently, and they were the ones that represented the petrodollar for oil here, which is a major reason why they're seizing Russian tankers, oil tankers outside of Venezuela. It gets so deep, but he says right there that digital infrastructure.
You will have different coalitions that are formed. So what this partnership does is in areas, for example, of clean energy, conventional energy, agriculture, as we were just talking about, and financial services, which we've talked less about.
All together under a digital ID system with social credit, my friends.
But the evolution of the global financial system, the role of the renminbi over time. The evolution of cross-border payments. I know it all.
The role of the renminbi over time, the yuan, the Chinese currency, the role of it. They're talking about the new world reserve currency. I mean, you might think, why are you laughing? It's like, I've been talking about this for so long, and just to see the prime minister, a former central banker, just lay this out flat, say this is what we're doing, is insane. But not surprising. But it's just insane to see it spoken out loud. Anyway.
All sounds very dry, except for your organization,
it's not dry
which I
at
think
all.
Takes an interest in it.
Very interesting.
These are important elements of how the system's going to work. And look, the expectation is that rather than these being developed necessarily through the IMF, WTO, and other multilateral organizations, it is going to be coalitions that develop them not for the world, but for subsectors of the world.
Yep, exactly. The West versus the East, and it's always been about that. And notice how he says this is how the system is going to be, not maybe it might be. He's saying this is what's going to happen. And he says in the clip, like, this might sound dry. It's not dry at all. This is incredibly interesting to those that have been paying attention about what the New World Order is. And the New World Order isn't necessarily just this world government that controls everything. That already exists. There's already a shadow government that does this. This is an economic infrastructure situation that includes basically the bankrupting of humanity itself, utilizing digital technology and the ability to control everyone via CBDCs attached to digital IDs connected with social credit scores and carbon credit scores attached to, of course, 15-minute cities and all that. That would also integrate all those things that he mentioned. You know, he said all these things are grouped together. This is where the social credit and all this stuff comes in. Agriculture, financial regulations, all this stuff is connected together, and it's part of this new world order system, which they've been working on for so damn long. I have a book behind me here, actually, called Trilaterals Over Washington, Volumes 1 and 2 by Patrick Wood and Anthony C. Sutton, and absolutely incredible. I've had Patrick Wood on multiple times on our show here, And what it warned about long ago was basically, okay, after, and this was modeled even back in World War II, after the attack on Japan due to Pearl Harbor, which was allowed to happen, they were taking over China at the time. And the U.S. intervention allowed China to be, by 1948, propped up as a communist country. And same thing with Russia, by the way, the Soviet Union, the Bolshevik Revolution and all that. Fast forward to, and by the way, the Soviet Union, World War II as well, being propped up by the West. But fast forward to 1972. So we have China, which is bankrupt. There's mass starvation. Countless, insane amounts of people are dying. I mean, I think they've counted possibly as much as 200 million people died in China over a few decades, which is totally insane. It could be 100 million, could be 200 million. That's a crazy margin of error. I'm aware of that. However, they covered most of this up, and they hid a lot of this. They found mass bodies, mass graves and all that. Anyway, Henry Kissinger meets with Mao Zedong to create an alliance with China to prop them up as a monopoly on trade. Now, why would they do that? To save them from starvation? Oh, give a peace prize to Henry Kissinger here. Around the same time, we have, 1969, I should say, Charles de Gaulle, the former president of France, sending battleships to New York Harbor demanding their gold be repatriated, which the United States didn't have that gold. So therefore, because they didn't have that gold, they sent battleships to New York Harbor, and in response, Nixon said, okay, we'll pay you back in debt, and that debt would be through fiat. So they create the fiat system, which Henry Kissinger then met a few years later with the Saudis to create the petrodollar system, to create a world reserve currency that was based on oil. Now, rewind a little bit here. We have Kissinger meeting with Mao and creating this trade deal with him. And then you fast forward a little bit to the Carter administration, and you have Zbigniew Brzezinski and the Rockefeller family shaking hands in order to create, prop up China as a guinea pig state for technocracy worldwide, for a technocratic world order. That's what they said themselves. Now, the Rockefellers were interesting because back in the 1910s, they were shaking hands with Marxists and eventually Bolsheviks over the idea of slowly integrating the world into a system of complete communism and dependence, utilizing corporations. Sounds weird, right? That's corporatism and the shift into quasi-fascist, fascio-communistic rule through technocracy, which is what the World Economic Forum pushes out today. And we've seen what happened with Sesame Credit in China back in the early 2010s, which I reported on the time. And now we see, and then, of course, the facial recognition in the street, pre-crime data, getting SMS messages to your phone with fines for jaywalking with your face shamed on a giant billboard. The social system is harsh. And then, of course, with the rest of that, integrating with robot police and all that. But with COVID, they utilized that as a litmus test. They utilized Chinese technology for facial recognition and these scans that people were doing and letting people in and out of their neighborhood, especially in places like New York. And now they're pulling this out across the board with Trump's data across all these highways, the interstate system, with facial recognition and license plate readers, or in New York on the left side of things, with their pre-crime data, or government grocery stores, and all this stuff leads to what? Social credit, which you now have in the United States if you need to show 5 years of social media history to enter the country. And that is social credit. That is what the World Economic Forum wanted. And then destruction of the supply chain across the board, so they ration food, all these things. Missouri right now, of age verification online, includes an actual digital ID. Then you look at the UK. They mandated digital IDs, and now they're pushing it on newborns. And they say, oh, it's not mandatory. You just can't participate in everyday life without it. Now, Canada has been doing this for quite a while. They've been rolling out their digital ID wallet. And they also have QR codes to enter places in Canada, including an island in Quebec. Now, Carney was a central banker for years. He knows what he's doing. He's actually intelligent. Unlike Justin Trudeau, who's a complete moron, Mark Carney's actually intelligent. In all the wrong ways, of course. Not that he actually has real power. He's just mocking people essentially as where his position is here. He is integrating Canada with China. And after years of attacking Russia, this actually is in the same system, the BRICS Plus system, which replaces the petrodollar by design. The U.S. propped up the system that would replace them, as did Canada. And now Canada is just joining it. This is the beginning of that domino effect into that new Eastern system. The West was never going to win. They've flooded themselves with migrants. They've destroyed their own culture, demoralized society. As Orwell says, if you want to destroy a society, you have to start from the inside, destroy it from within. Well, they've normalized us to the demoralization. And with Greenland, that is a part of that shift to make it appear as though the West is fighting back against the Eastern Bloc by fighting against Russia and China, and in turn also Canada, by taking over Greenland. It's about the petrodollar system and having the ammo to surround countries, essentially, and make it appear as though they're threatening. But the empire is dying. I'm not stupid. I'm aware that they're extremely powerful militaristically, but the empire is dying. And that military, the Britain's world order was extremely strong militaristically versus a bunch of farmers that overthrew them back in 1776 and throughout into the 1780s. So this is not like a new historical case. The difference is that it is technocratic now, and it's far more dangerous because the idea is tyranny comes under the guise of convenience. They replace the system we have with something more convenient by scaring people, by causing security concerns, and coming in with a new situation, a new system of technocracy to replace it. Now, a part of that is you get order out of chaos. The United Nations signed 193 countries signed the UN Pact for the Future back in September of 2024, which allowed them to shut down your bank account. It allowed them to force you into social credit, digital IDs, food rations, all these things, warrantlessly arrest, whatever it might be, based on emergency orders. In Canada, they have the Emergency Planning Act, which sections 18 and 18.1, which they signed back in 2021, which allows them to do the same thing, but also kill you and steal your food and take your pets and take your livestock and destroy your home or use it as an office or destroy your vehicle or use it as their own vehicle or force you into labor without pay and force you into military service and stuff like that. This has been around for a while, and they say under emergency orders. So they've built the system that China had created years ago already. It's already in place. So this new world order is the BRICS world order versus the West, and the West created that system to replace it eventually. So you could say, oh, Trump's going to bring them down. Trump is a president. Presidents don't have power. The new world order already exists in the sense that there's a giant shadow government that controls almost every country. And Israel is a major part of that with getting blackmail on people, utilizing people like Epstein. They're manipulating the protests and bragging about it in Iran right now, and have likely been part of killing a lot of these protesters in Iran. They convinced Trump to go against Venezuela, who was trading in Chinese Yuan and Russian rubles rather than the US dollar for oil. And also gold, by the way. After they sold off all their gold, they got into a gold trade later on. And I confronted, I just remember this. I should have included this. Bill Morneau, the former finance minister of Canada back in May 2016, on selling off all of Canada's gold. And I asked him, what, do you want to end up like Venezuela? It was always about that. Yes. I didn't quite get the connection between Venezuela and Canada and the BRICS system back then. I do now. And thinking back, yes, of course. That's what it was always. This was always about this. And it's just, to me, incredible to watch it just play out. And I'm not happy about it. It's an absolutely horrifying thing. But to see the vindication here, and I'm hoping that enough people watch this, share this, and recognize this is happening so that other people can also see this reality here. I'm going to go into a little bit more here on this site. So Trump's response to Mark Carney making this $1 trillion trade deal with China.
Prime Minister Carney is in China. Prime Minister Carney is in China. How do you see the deals Canada and China have just signed, trade deals between the two partners?
Well, that's okay. That's what he should be doing. I mean, it's a good thing for him to sign a trade deal. If you can get a deal with China, you should do that.
They're all in on it, my friends. They're all in on it. And now, in a response, CBC, government-run media in Canada, has omitted Carney's New World Order line and spliced Beijing clip, even though that's the most important part. And, of course, all the while, China is to allow visa-free entry for Canadian visitors. The shift is the west of the east move I've been warning of for years. I wrote on X at @WorldAltMedia. I urge people to follow us there. That is what Carney means by New World Order, and I hope people are paying attention. Meanwhile, Denmark deploys advanced military unit to Greenland amid Trump annexation threats. We have France going there. And you know, similarly, interestingly enough, I should add, we have previously, you know, France and Germany and other countries talking about joining the BRICS system. Saudi Arabia is leaving the dollar. Already we have multiple major countries overseas joining the BRICS system. And by the way, that's what Saddam Hussein did before Iraq was overthrown. That's what Libya did, Gaddafi did before Libya was overthrown. This is what led to this Arab Spring nonsense. It started grassroots, but they manipulated it into something for the West. It's what we see Iran doing right now. And by the way, Iran, one of the top allies of Russia and China. This is all correlated. People are falling for nonsense. Oh, protests in Iran, or they might have nuclear weapons, or blah, blah, blah. It's not about that. One, it's part of the Greater Israel Project, but it's also about that hegemony system. And they need to make it appear as though they're fighting back, and then a lot of violence ensues, and then in comes these emergency orders. And just like, you know, Europe is now a walking museum of the past due to a lot of bad decisions and shifts between world orders. Now places like the United States will soon be as well, and they will not have the power structure that they used to have. But yeah, France and Germany and other countries talked about joining BRICS years ago. Now Canada is also making deals with Qatar right now and Saudi Arabia, and this is all happening very quick. And I don't believe in coincidences. So what I think we're witnessing here is them just acknowledge the shift. It's all happening. 2026, boom. 2025 was supposed to be the year that everything went digital, by the way. And, I mean, the European Central Bank did release their digital euro last year, their CBDC. The UK did release their digital ID. The UK is also pushing their CBDC right now. Augustus Carson's over at the Bank for International Settlements said years ago 2025 would be the year. He's out of Mexico. And there's another thing that I need to mention. Trump has been talking about going to war with Mexico, striking Mexico, Colombia, Cuba, and all these other places. Now, Cuba was propped up by a CIA regime change in the first place to prop up communism, which Fidel Castro and Che Guevara both trained in the United States. This is pretty well open knowledge, but most people still don't seem to recognize this. Now the CIA is going to overthrow them. We have Iran propped up by a CIA regime change in 1953, the coup that led to the Savak secret police and horrible, horrible things that came out of that, which by design led to the Arab uprising and the Arab Revolution, the Islamic Revolution of 1979, which led to what we have today, which led to an excuse or a pretext for them to go into there, and which led to them saying, hey, we're leaving the US dollar for BRICS. It's all by design. And of course, Mexico has been doing training exercises with in Monterrey with China and Russia for years. They're saying that Iran's controlling them. They're saying Iran was controlling Hezbollah through Venezuela on the island of Margarita. I've talked to people who live on the island of Margarita, and they all said, I've never seen a Muslim here in my life. And of course, all this stuff, these narratives are being created. Colombia as well. And then Brazil is a member of BRICS. Obviously, it's a B in BRICS. So all of this stuff, this new world order that Carney is talking about is the West to the East shift into a power structure which is technocratic, which was built a long time ago, which Trump is trying to pretend that he's fighting against, while actually the U.S. in the first place handed over the keys to the world order back in the 70s to China and Russia and these other countries and India. And this to me is blatantly obvious. Janet Yellen, who was the Treasury Secretary before that, the chair of the Fed, but the Treasury Secretary under Biden, went to China, did magic mushrooms with banking leaders there, had a discussion, and left. It was basically, again, them just saying, hey, you win by design. I believe strongly that this whole thing, this shift, this fight between China and the United States is completely false. And now they have Greenland as this entry point. They have, of course, and Russia is sending military to Greenland as well in order to do exercises. I've heard, though I've just seen some headlines on that. I haven't read into it deeply, but I know Russia is really pissed about all of this. They sent a huge amount of weapons to Venezuela as well recently, after their tanker was stolen from them, and almost ended in military action between the U.S. and Russia. as Ukraine continues to get armed and funded. And that is, again, another veneer, which leads to millions of deaths. There's no doubt about it, but it's a veneer to create this image of opposition. But they're actors on a stage, my friends. It's one big club and you ain't in it. They're all blackmailed. They're all paid. Some of them might just actually be demonic. I don't know. But the point is, what Mark Carney is doing is he's cementing, verbally anyway, it was cemented a long time ago, but cementing verbally that shift in 2026 to 2027. And why do you think people are fleeing the banks and fleeing the dollar into silver and gold and Bitcoin and privacy coins and stuff like that? But silver and gold, silver is insane right now. And yeah, it could drop 20% even. There's lots of banker manipulation, but so far the shorts that the banks are putting on silver are getting squeezed out. And then we end up with $93 silver and gold through the roof. And a year and a half ago, I was telling people you should get out of the banking system and get silver and gold when silver was at $25. And people said, oh, it's too high and you're crazy. This is why we can't have nice things, my friends. I urge people to understand where this is going. And the basis of it is, at the end of the day, the world government will be technocracy. You will own nothing and you'll be happy. That's a World Economic Forum mantra. This is what Mark Carney is pushing forward. And yes, it's what Trump is pushing forward with his AI deals with Saudi Arabia. And his tariffs and all of this kind of stuff lead to that supply chain crisis and that monetary crisis, which shifts into the CBDC, central bank digital currency system. It's so obvious to me. Mark Carney laid it out there, not really mincing words on, well, it's all going to be combined into one big, basket. Much like the voting power of the IMF will be replaced by BRICS. So all these things, it leads to the lack of humanity itself. The war was never on countries, religions, or cultures. They utilize these things and money in order to collapse civilization. But what they actually are doing is the war is on humanity itself. Human beings. Human beings are based in individualism, freedom, free will, self-responsibility. They want that gone. They want you to be dependent. Collective responsibility, oxymoron, it basically means slavery. They depend on the dependence of the masses. And what we're seeing with Mark Carney here is that shift. And I hope to God that people are paying attention. Now, what do we do about it? Question as old as time. Though in the past, people understood, well, I better get to work. I better work on my farm. I better have my homestead. These days, not so much. However, I believe in real world solutions. I make nothing off of this, basically. And I've talked about this for a long time, but heavensharvest.com, if you use code WHAM right now, WAM, it's 25% off. I'm just trying to get people prepared because they're going after your food. They're going after your money. So what should we do? Be responsible and take care of our food and take care of our money. If you go to heavensharvest.com, you can get long-term storable food that's non-GMO. There's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, books on how to get started. Of course, there's freeze-dried food and all that as well. And then, again, use code WHAM, W-A-M, and save 25%. Highly, highly recommend people get on this now. As I mentioned earlier, and we have lots of videos with Mark Gonzalez over at World Alternative Media on Rumble and BitChute. We did a video called World War III and the Silver Boom recently. We did Silver Squeeze Continues recently as well. I urge people to go and check those out. But if you go to firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/, has to be that exact link. It's in the description of the videos. Don't shorten it. It has to be the full one. There you could avoid the CBDC system, the collapsing banks with cash deposit ratios under 1%, all by design. Of course, we are seeing derivative exposures through the roof, massive amounts of debt, inflation through the roof, and the push into that digital infrastructure. Buy physical gold, silver, platinum, or palladium. Hold it in your hands. Put it in a vault or put it in an IRA outside of the traditional IRA system. Schedule an appointment for a free consultation with Mark Gonzalez. You'll also get a complimentary investors package. And let him know in the comments of the forum that you found him at World Alternative Media or WHAM, W-A-M. Highly recommend people get on this. Also, join us as a community at Anarchapulco. Anarchapulco.com in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, February 15th to 20th this year, 2026. If you use code WHAM, W-A-M, you'll save 10% on your tickets. I highly recommend people come and check it out. I'll be speaking there, And, of course, people like Jeff Berwick, Gareth Ike, David Icke, Curtis Stone, Greg Reese, Charlie Robinson, people like Max Egan and Dr. Andrew Kaufman, Chris Horlocker, Christian Yordanov, the president of Liberland, Vit Jedlicka, Dan Dix of Press for Truth, who you saw earlier in the video. Lots of amazing people. Paul Puey, who's a good friend of mine, Ernest Hancock. It's going to be amazing. And if you come out to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico in that time, you will be able to see a lot of these great speakers. Again, code WAM, W-A-M. We'll save you money on that. Of course, there's many health things that people have to check out. We have our link, vni.life/WAM, W-A-M, for a bunch of super supplements. If you use code WAM15, WAM15, you'll save 15% off on your order. And again, like we have Protovite, 100 plus vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients in it. Absolutely incredible. If you look at the before and after, I got to make sure this is muted so it doesn't play audio. We see the circulatory issues in people's blood. Red blood cells are dormant. They've lost their negative charge. White blood cells are tiny. And then you look at 5 minutes after taking Protovite. Red blood cells are freely flowing. Negative charge is restored. And white blood cells are 4 times their size. Absolutely incredible. I urge people to go and check that out. That usually takes a month, but it's taking 5 minutes by using Protovite. So vni.life/WAM, W-A-M, code WAM15. Now, we have a lot of other options, but I'm just going to close it off at this point. I guess I should mention WaveWatch 2.2 again, code WAM, W-A-M. Awesome stuff over there. You'll save over $100 if you use code WAM. But I want to close it off and thank those that have donated. Thank you so much, Richard and Ronald, and all those who've donated in the past. We need help big time. Go get funding.com, Patreon, and Subscribestar. Anything helps to keep us alive, my friends. $4.99 a month or more on Patreon or Subscribestar will get you exclusive content. So go and check that out, of course. We have a PayPal address, ancientwonderstelevision@gmail.com, a Bitcoin address that you can scan on the screen here or check out in the description below in text form. We have our Cointree link with a bunch of different cryptocurrencies that you could donate in if you please, including privacy coins. And, of course, as always, my friends, we have a Teespring store with a bunch of merchandise. We appreciate everyone watching. This is my first time using Streamlabs in years and in my own system to make sure that, I get this video out, and I'm hoping that everything worked out and the technology worked with the audio and everything. Fingers crossed, but hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. Find us on Telegram, Band.video, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, and Brighteon at World Alternative Media. We're on Hive, Steemit, and Vigilante.tv at Josh Sigurdson. We're on the Bad Guys, TikTok and Instagram, World Alternative Media, Twitter and Getter at World Alt Media, and all the major podcast platforms except for Spotify, where, of course, we're banned. And, of course, again, it's all about living by example, living freely. This is everyone's job out there. Please stand up. This is your way to do it. Withdraw from the system. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth. Be the change.